Punch Out. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Nick Tasso at the Inefficient 2. Taking a look at today's Sunday slate, just 9 games here on FanDuel, and good amount of pitching options. You got your aces, so I think overall I could be pretty happy after the last couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I feel like we haven't seen in a while where we kind of have nice starting pitchers, some nice priced bats, and kind of should have a fun day.
Yeah, definitely. And Orioles and Blue Jays first here. You got Aaron Sanchez versus Chris Tillman. Aaron Sanchez, for me, I think he's a viable GPP arm, just given that the Orioles offense is, slipping since the break. They haven't been that great. Could be kind of a sneaky GPP option, given that the Baltimore strikeout rate is fairly high against right-handed pitching. And Sanchez, really his only small weakness, I guess you could say, is lefties, which really Chris Davis and Kim are the only guys to really worry about here.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Little concern about his strikeout potential, but like you said, against Baltimore, he should be able to get enough to really boost up his fantasy value. So I actually like him in this spot here. So I definitely kind of deploy him, and his price tag gets dropped down a little bit. So 9,000 is a pretty nice price for him.
Yeah, definitely. Minus 162 favorite there in Toronto. And for me, it's kind of a wash with those Baltimore bats. I don't really see myself using them against him. He's just been tough on right-handers. And I think on a 9-game slate, Baltimore's offense just kind of looks a little bit less appealing.
Yeah, and you look at his opposing matchup with Tillman, and Tillman struggled a lot against Toronto in his career, especially against the big bats. So I think Sanchez should be in line for a pretty easy win.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of those Toronto bats, they're expensive. Both Encarnacion and Bautista are 4,200, Donaldson 5,200. Saunders is the only one who's pretty reasonable, but overall, I find them kind of more just GPP plays, just given that their price tag is that high. I kind of rather lean elsewhere in cash games.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The only guy who would probably play in cash would be Troy Tulowitzki, just because he's only 2,800 and he's hit 2 home runs in his career off of Tillman. And all the other guys, they're priced high, but they all have really good numbers. So if you can fit them in some GPPs, might as well deploy them.
Yeah, definitely. Tillman 1.34 home runs per 9 to right-handers since last year. So those guys definitely in a good spot to do some damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Batista and Encarnacion, they've all seen him a lot, and they all have relatively really good numbers. So even though they are expensive, I really wouldn't mind playing them in GPPs. It's kind of tough to go between each one of them because Encarnacion's been extremely hot, as well as Batista now that he's back. But I'd probably lean towards Batista just because first base, there's other options you might want to go.
Yeah, definitely. I think Donaldson's kind of the odd man out, just given he's another 1,000 higher.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you get over 5,000 on FanDuel, it's really hard to fit them into any lineup, GPP or cash.
Yeah, definitely. They just have to do an absurd amount to really pay off that price tag. And while Donaldson obviously has that potential, it's just the odds of that happening are unlikely.
No, I agree with you there, and you probably could find some a little bit cheaper for a little bit less production, but pretty similar.
Yeah, definitely. Yankees and Rays next here. Michael Pineda versus Blake Snell, and Pineda's another guy who I'm not trusting in cash, but I do like the GPP upside. Pineda's solid strikeout rate, misses a lot of bats, and obviously the Rays. Bottom 10 WOBA against right-handers, and they do have a high strikeout rate. So for me, I like Pineda here, but I think there obviously is always some blow-up potential as we've seen in the past. So definitely reserving more for GPPs.
Yeah, I don't mind him in GPPs. He's priced nicely, but I remember a couple months ago against the Rays in New York, he just completely was terrible on a Sunday. So I just think he's one of those guys where you just deploy him in GPPs, and until he shows something in a great matchup, I think you stay far away from him in cash.
Yeah, definitely agree. Good thing is he'll be out of Yankee Stadium. In Tropicana, definitely a better park for him to deal with and hopefully keep some of those balls in the yard, just because that's really been his struggle. For me, though, I don't mind taking Rays bats against him if you're looking to be a little bit contrarian. I don't mind a Brad Miller or Corey Dickerson, and obviously an Evan Longoria at 3.8. It's a nice discount from some of those other top third basemen.
Yeah, I agree with you there. There's a lot of nice priced players on this slate. In this game, so you can get away with some decent exposure at a cheap price. I personally probably would just stay away from this game altogether, but in cash games, just because it is Yankees and it is the Rays, and these offenses really aren't too good, and the pitching could go either way.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side, I mean, Yankees, I mean, Carlos Beltran might be the only one I might take a look at, but um, given a lot of lefty on lefty matchups in a bad ballpark, I'm just kind of staying away from the Yanks.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Typically, you like to play like McCann, but you just can't do it lefty lefty.
No. A's and Indians here, Corey Kluber versus Sonny Gray. And Kluber's a guy who, minus 181 favorite, who I feel fine with in cash and GPP today. Nice matchup against an Oakland offense that struggles against righties. And Kluber, I mean, obviously, I know there is a little inconsistency with him, but I think in today's matchup, I'm willing to kind of overlook it. And for me, Kluber's kind of a swerve off of Syndergaard. If that rain kind of doesn't go away in New York, I can just kind of pivot to Kluber.
Yeah, I don't mind Kluber here. He's pitched pretty well. The strikeouts have been pretty consistent lately, so I like him in this matchup. I know Oakland doesn't strike out too much, but you could definitely kind of have his way against some mediocre bats, especially Oakland is mainly righties, and Kluber obviously is a righty, so he could kind of dominate them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and the one thing I really don't worry about is kind of strikeout rate sometimes is with guys like Kluber. Just because I mean he has that upside. I mean we saw against the Angels in an earlier start where their strikeout rate really isn't high against right-handers, but he can still dial up 7 or 8 strikeouts. So that's just one of the things you got to like about Kluber. I mean, if it was an average arm, like a Josh Tomlin, I mean we saw him put up some strikeouts. So I think he'll be fine in that department. I think he's worthy of a GPP look as well. And just the only way I'm using him in cash is if I swerve off of Syndergaard because of weather.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at Kluber, and he's just been so consistent with the strikeouts over his past 10 or so. He's gotten almost at least like 8 every game, except for one in that game. He kind of got destroyed by Toronto. Didn't last very long. But other than that, all the other games against different teams, the Angels who don't strike out too much, he still got 8. So, I mean, he's definitely one of those more consistent guys who's going to get you those 8, 9, even 10 strikeout games.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side, I mean, Sonny Gray is going. Cleveland, I mean, projected for over 4.5 runs. I'm not crazy about them, but I do like their prices. I do like them, getting down to this level because I feel like they've been relatively high over the last 2 weeks or so. I don't mind Kipnis, Lindor. I don't mind Napoli. I don't really mind that trio of guys there. And still, Lonnie Chisenhall is always kind of one of my favorite values from this team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only guy I'd probably play in cash would be Lonnie Chisenhall. Pretty cheap, 2,500. He can hit pretty well. I know Sonny Gray's had a really bad year, but he did look better in his last start, so I don't want to attack him too much here.
Yeah, definitely not getting overboard with the Indians. It's just more of kind of a one-off situation where I might grab a bat or two in each lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, they are priced down from where they've been this past week, so I really don't mind some of these guys.
Yeah, definitely. And A's bats, I mean, I don't find myself picking on Kluber, and I don't see myself kind of hopeful with anyone here that can hit a homer or two.
Yeah, if I were gonna try to pick on Kluber, it'd probably be a pretty cheap guy, probably Stephen Vogt, 2,500, or even Jed Lowry. So just trying to find cheap value, which you probably won't get against Kluber, but they could get a couple hits and kind of pay off for that.
Yeah. Cardinals and Marlins next year, Andrew Cashner versus Carlos Martinez. And for me, Carlos Martinez just kind of gets washed out a little bit just because I like Pineda. I like Sanchez a little more at the 9K price tag. So I don't really see myself using him. I think he's just kind of a guy who I'm not picking on, but I'm not using either.
See, I kind of disagree. I think he is okay. It's a good park. I know Marlins went off yesterday, but I think he's kind of in a good matchup against a bunch of righties for these Marlins who have a lot of power, and he could kind of get a lot of strikeouts. But I think with D. Gordon, kind of shies me away now that he's back a little bit. I kind of agree with you. His price is a little bit too high for me, especially with everyone considered around him.
Yeah, and he's not really a clear favorite with Vegas. I mean, although I would expect that the Cardinals get some run support for off Cashner, it doesn't seem like that's always a guarantee. Yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, nice ballpark factors there for Martinez. Strikeout upside, I mean, I don't think it's really quite there. I think he kind of might hover in that 5K range.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen that recently. And what's been saving him is that he hasn't been allowing too many runs most starts. So that's kind of evened it out. But if he, like you said, if he does get hit a little bit and those strikeouts aren't there, it's really going to mess up your day.
Yeah, definitely. And on the Cardinals side, I mean, I like the bats. I like Leonidas Diaz at 3-2, Piscotty 3-2, Holiday 3-3. I think those are some nice kind of price points for these Cardinals who do have some potential and are obviously a top 5 team in WOBA against right-handed pitching. It's a lot to do because of the top of the lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even mind Matt Adams in this situation. He's really hit righties pretty well this year. And Cashner's one of those guys who he's been pretty solid. It's just every once in a while he can have those extreme blow up days and just get absolutely demolished. And that could be one of those days today.
Yeah, definitely could. I mean, we've seen Cashner have those blowups, and just because he's in a new city, I don't think that really changes anything there.
No, absolutely. If anything, his adrenaline's probably rushing and he's probably going to make some mistakes.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Rockies and Mets next year. Noah Syndergaard versus Chad Bettis, and Syndergaard. I mean, he's my favorite pitcher on the hill. Just hoping that the weather holds off in New York or passes or whatever it's going to happen. There is some rain in the area, but heavy favorite against this Rockies team that bottom 5 in WOBA on the road. A 23% strikeout rate. Hard not to like Syndergaard here.
Oh, absolutely. And you look at this Colorado team, they strike out a whole bunch. So I think Syndergaard's going to be able to really have his way against them. He's just been pretty solid. A little alarming. He's given up 7 hits in back-to-back games. But other than that, if he's still striking out guys, he's going to put up a pretty big fantasy production kind of day. I'm not too concerned about Chad Bettis going against them, so I think Syndergaard should be able to get the win, but it is a little alarming, this Mets offense against them, so hopefully they do score a couple runs to help out Syndergaard.
Yeah, definitely. And Syndergaard, I mean, if you're looking for a strikeout rate on the slate, I mean, he's been the lead guy. I mean, he's the only one over 30%, with Pineda and Kluber kind of narrowing in. But for me, I mean, he's been the most consistent guy in that department out of this entire slate.
Absolutely. So I definitely have no issues playing him in cash or even in GPPs.
Yeah, definitely. And on the Mets side, as far as bats go, if you own Cespedes in the lineup, I don't mind it against Bettis there. Obviously, Bettis a reverse splits guy, so I don't mind picking on him. I'm not really going after a lot of the lefties in this lineup, but I could see doing it if I need to get some value. So I don't mind a Walker or Cabrera if I need to kind of go up the middle with some value.
Yeah, I agree with you there. There's really not a lot to like from this Mets offense. I wouldn't mind if I had to play in James Loney at 2,600, but when you get into playing players at first base that are that low, it's just you might as well pay up for someone else.
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing, I mean, I guess on the Rocky side is if Blackman can get on, he'll be able to definitely grab a stolen base or two off of Syndergaard. I guess it's the only thing I could actually see using in Colorado and GPPs. Obviously, the important thing is getting on, but if he does, he'll run for days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and his price is really cheap, 3,000 on this slate. So I wouldn't mind deploying him. He's done well the past few days against the Mets pitching, so I don't mind him. And I agree with you that he could easily get a stolen base or two.
Yeah, and he's about the only one I'll take that chance on.
Yeah, everyone else is more power hitters, and you really don't see that happening against Syndergaard.
Yeah. Astros and Tigers next, Mike Pelfrey versus Dallas Keuchel. And I think Mike Pelfrey probably creates one of the more attractive matchups on the slate for Houston. For me, I mean, I like this lineup kind of top through bottom. I don't mind taking some GPP chances with some of the back end guys who are cheap. But obviously, the Correa and Springer price tags are something I like a bit here.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I know Altuve has been extremely good, especially lately, but I don't know if I could pay 4,100 for him on this slate. It's just a little bit too high. I'd much rather save a little bit with, like you said, Correa and Springer. So I don't mind them there. And even Colby Rasmus, I know he was awful since the break, but he's slowly starting to turn it around again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, projected for over 5 runs. Mike Pelfrey is a guy who he's not a huge blow-up guy, but I mean, he just seems like he gives up enough in his 4 to 5 innings of work and then hands it over to a pen that really isn't that good. So I could see Houston kind of blowing up today.
Yeah, absolutely. Just keep an eye on the lineup. I know they have a few injuries, and just see where you can kind of really utilize, maybe even throw in a Tyler White or Preston Tucker if they're in a good spot.
Yeah, definitely. As far as the Tigers bats go, I'm not really looking to use Keuchel, but I'm not exactly targeting him a ton today. On the road, I think that helps out the Tigers a little bit here with Keuchel. Ian Kinsler, 3.9. I don't mind him in GPPs. I don't think he's quite cash game priced for me. But overall, I mean, this Tigers offense hasn't been great against lefties.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at Keuchel though, and he's been much better at home. So uh, in Detroit, even though it is a pitcher's park, he might have a little bit of struggle. So I wouldn't mind utilizing some of these bats, but anyone over probably 3,200, I'm probably not going to use out of Detroit just because there's probably going to be better options on the slate. I don't really mind Nick Castellanos just because he's hit lefties really well this year. Again, I'm not picking on Dallas Keuchel though.
Yeah, I'm not either. And I think, with some of those cheaper guys like Castellanos and Upton, I don't mind their price tags if you are taking some shots against them.
Yeah, and even maybe one of the catchers, Alfamaki or McCann against Keuchel.
Yeah, McCann's definitely showed some upside against lefties this year.
Yeah, but they're both at 2,300. So I mean, you just kind of throw them in and just hope for a couple hits or so.
Yeah, definitely. Braves and Phillies next year, Gerard Eichhoff versus Joel De La Cruz. This one, I mean, I'm not looking to use any pitchers. Kind of some intriguing Braves value, just because Eichhoff struggles with lefties. I don't mind Jace Peterson at that price tag. Freddie Freeman's up there, but I don't mind him either. I think there's some solid potential that the Braves put up some runs today.
Yeah, absolutely. And you even look at a couple other guys further down, Nick Markakis and Ender and Ciarte lefties. They could also do some damage. They're under 2,700 each, so I don't mind utilizing them. I'm probably not going to get too much exposure out of this game because at the end of the day, it is Atlanta's offense. But it's if you need to save some salary at 2,600, I don't mind either of those guys.
No, I don't either. And on the Phillies side, prices are a little more expensive than I like as far as the front two, with Hernandez and Herrera, 35 and 3,800. A little up above my taste, but I like Mike Franco at 3.3. Aaron Alter at 2.6 is something I'm intrigued with as well. I think it's a decent matchup for the Phillies.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like Cesar Hernandez here. I mean, he's back to being what he was last year, even if it's just for a short time. But he was really good. And 3,500, I know it's a little expensive, but I don't mind him at second base. So I like him there. And Franco does have that enormous power. So I could kind of deploy him here as well. But again, it's just this is a game that I'm probably not going to have too much exposure in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and you look at Hernandez. I mean, the odd thing is, I mean, he's walked 8 times over the last 3 games here. I mean, he gets on base, but the one thing is his price has jumped tremendously since really the last game. Has come up quite a bit. I guess that's my only issue. I think I'd rather look for a little more upside out of someone with 3,500.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you there. I'm probably not jumping at the chance to roster him, but if I'm doing maybe a stack or something, I really don't mind him. I think he's going to have a pretty good game. It's just you're kind of right. 3,500 is a little bit steep for him. You kind of use your money somewhere else, get more of a power bat.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, obviously, I think there is a good chance that he does get on base a few times and hopefully generate some runs with some guys behind him hitting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I like about Hernandez is he just does pretty much everything. So that's why I like him. Again, 3,500 might be a little steep, but against this pitcher, I mean, he could do some damage.
Yeah, definitely. Pirates and Brewers next year, and Francisco Liriano, Matt Garza. Liriano is probably the deep down tournament play that I might look at just because he's cheap and going up against an offense that going to be without Lucroy, going to probably be without Ryan Braun. I mean, if he continues to sit out, and that just lineup is awful. Without those two.
Yeah, absolutely. And he faced them just a couple days ago, a couple starts ago, and put up 65 FanDuel points against them, and that was with Braun and Lucroy. So I definitely think you take those two guys out, and the only real guy that scares me in that lineup would be Villar and maybe Chris Carter. And I think he could easily work around those guys and put up another maybe 10 strikeout performance. And you look at Liriano coming off that bad start against Seattle. His ownership was high because of the start before that. So I think just recency bias, people aren't really going to have higher ownership on him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And obviously, I think being in Miller Park, hurts him a little bit. He's been kind of, subpar away from home this year. I guess that's my only concern, but I think just given the fact that he's that cheap, there's that much strikeout upside, he's a good favorite for a win. I can kind of overlook that in this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at his price, 7,900, and it probably should be around nine for most of his starts. So I like him. You get the discount from pretty much everyone else that we've talked about. So again, Milwaukee Park, like you said, isn't the best, but against a lineup that really doesn't have much pop, it might not matter.
Yeah, certainly. And on the Pirates side, I mean, I like the prices of Polanco and McCutcheon in this matchup against Garza. Marte, I mean, if I'm paying up for an outfielder, I don't mind him. So I don't mind this Pirates top half of the lineup. I mean, I don't see myself using John Jaso, but Jung Ho Kang 2-5. I think that's an intriguing matchup. Just given Matt Garza, I mean, struggled against both sides of the plate going back to last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I like all those guys that you touched on just for the fact that it is Matt Garza. I probably like Kang the best just because he is pretty cheap, 2,500. So you could kind of utilize him basically in most lineups and get pretty good production out of him.
Yeah, definitely. So I think being in that ballpark, Miller Park should help out those Pirates bats who, hitting in PNC is always not the most friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's possibly why some of their price is a little bit lower typically than it should be.
Yeah. White Sox and Twins, Irvin Santana versus Carlos Rodon. For me, I could see really either of these guys having a decent outing. I'm not really in favor of it. I don't know. This game's kind of unappealing to me. It's not really a ton that I like here. White Sox have been fairly disappointing for this season. I could see Santana turning in a quality start, but I'm probably more prone to pick on Rodon with some of those righties in Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at Dozier and Sano, and they've really crushed lefties. Sano should be back in the lineup today. My issue is just their price. I think both those guys are extremely high for what you would expect out of them. So I probably wouldn't play them. So this might be one of those games that I just kind of stay away.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the price tags are the only thing that I don't feel comfortable using, especially given the fact that, I likely will be going for Kluber or Syndergaard, and even Pineda, isn't a complete drop down. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure how many, lineups they work themselves into, just given that their price tag's fairly high.
Yeah, one guy I don't mind on Minnesota would be Kurt Suzuki, just because he's pretty cheap and he's hit lefties somewhat well this year, so I wouldn't mind him. You're still unsure what you're going to get out of Rodon, so for me, I would prefer to play someone who I know can really crush lefties, and those would only be Dozier and Sano, and to me, they're just too expensive.
Yeah, definitely. And in the White Sox, I mean, I'm always intrigued just because of the names. I mean, they got, a really strong 1 through 6. It's just they don't produce on a consistent basis. Never quite cash, I mean, of late for me. So I don't mind them in GPPs if you wanted to target away with, a Tim Anderson or an Adam Eaton. I don't mind those guys because there is upside there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even mind Justin Morneau. He's only 2,700, hit a home run yesterday, so that would be a nice place to save some cap space. And it's just funny to think Irvin Santana is still pitching against Justin Morneau in 2016.
Yeah, I know. And you look at Morneau, I mean, he's shown off, I mean, a little bit of power since coming back. And, he's been decent. And overall, I mean, I feel like if you want to roster a first baseman, it's Morneau at this point as Abreu continues to just struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And Morneau's just one of those guys, and he hasn't played in a while, but he's kind of had a sort of a resurgence. I know it's only been 12 games, but you kind of throw him in that lineup and he could kind of do some damage.
Yeah, definitely. And in target field, I mean, not a bad spot to hit during this time of year either.
Yeah, and you look at Morneau, it gives him kind of balance to mainly a righty only lineup for the most part.
Yeah, definitely. So that's going to wrap things up with the FanDuel Punch Out. Be sure to check out DailyFantasyCafe.com for our great tools and content.